Chapter 421 Violent Nine Halls. The crowd burst into an uproar when the second soul seed was exposed. When everyone was an intermediate magician, having soul seeds was the key to differentiating yourself from others. Those ranked in the top 400 had a significant advantage on the leaderboard, as everyone at their rank had at least one soul seed. Those with 2 soul seeds were ranked in the top 140. Words weren't needed to describe how strong those with 2 soul seeds were. If they had achieved the 3rd tier of their intermediate spells, they could easily be placed in the top 50. Their strength completely outmatched the rest of the students. The strength that Mo Fan had displayed could easily place him in the top 140. He also had 2 4th tier basic spells, thus he could easily defeat those with the same cultivation. His true strength should be within the top 100. No wonder he dared to utter such scornful words. He had no reason to be afraid of consecutive battles, since he could easily defeat those ranked below 400 with mere basic spells. This transfer student is very impressive. I feel like the fire school is running out of challengers. I have heard of duels between different elements, but I've never seen infighting like this before. The fire school is known for their hot tempers. The students are very proud of themselves, too. It feels good to see the transfer student giving them a slap to their faces, said a student from the wind school with a grin. The fire school is going to be famous. They are all picking on a transfer student, yet they found themselves being beaten up by him. What do you mean they're going to be famous? I've already uploaded a clip to the school forum. The post already has more than 1,000 replies. Several students from the other elements who were anxious to see the world in disorder had already uploaded video recordings of the duels to the internet. Suddenly, even those who weren't present had their attention fixed on the duels. 56th Challenger. He has now defeated 66 people. Who told you that basic spells are useless? The transfer student remains undefeated in his battle against the fire school. All he hopes for is a loss. All kinds of post titles spread wildly on the internet. It went without saying that everyone had a mobile phone. All they needed was a single click to share the clips on their Weibo, WeChat Moments, or the forums they were active on, and the news would quickly spread to the people they knew. As the news spread on the internet, those who were bored immediately made their way to the dueling ground. Initially, there were still some vacant seats, but they were promptly filled by the latecomers. Many initially thought the renowned families were using some marketing strategy to catch their attention, yet when the students of the fire school revealed the entire incident, they were convinced that it was real. Mo Fan's name quickly spread wildly in the school, since he had already defeated 66 challengers. The disciples of the renowned families were infuriated. Normally, the first day of the challenging week would have epic battles between those who were ranked in the top 100 or even top 50, yet their dueling grounds were fairly empty. They totally lost their motivation to continue the battles. Phew. Mo Fan let out a deep breath. His eyes were fixed on the student in front of him. This student was an expert ranked 124th, who also had 2 soul seeds. After she adeptly used Earth Wave to dodge his basic spells, Mo Fan had no choice but to utilize the full strength of his fire and lightning elements. Mo Fan found those with both fire and earth elements the most annoying. The basic earth spell, Earth Wave, allowed them to dodge his fire burst perfectly, while the intermediate earth spell, Rock Barrier, was the perfect counter to his thunderbolt. Mo Fan was most likely going to waste lots of energy fighting against someone with perfect evasion and defense. Mo Fan's energy was already very limited after the prolonged duels. You should be content with how far you've come. Your ideas about magic are very unique. You're willing to spend your resources on basic spells. If it weren't for the low energy cost of the basic spells, you wouldn't be able to come this far. The 124th ranked female student, Li Yuji, glanced at Mo Fan proudly. What are you feeling proud of? Since you're so confident with your defense, I'll crush it with brute strength. Mo Fan was infuriated. He had never seen a girl feeling proud when she was taking advantage of someone's precarious situation. Following his furious roar, scorching rose flames burst out from Mo Fan's body like rolling lava. The flames turned into liquid, breaking through Li Yuji's defense violently. Rose Flame, Fiery Fist, 9 halls. Mo Fan had no intention to waste more time with his opponent. If he continued to preserve his strength and energy, it would only cost more of it in the end. He had to admit that Li Yuji's defense with the Cerulean Earth Soul Seed was fairly outstanding, able to stop every attack he had cast so far. However, the Fiery Fist, 9 Halls was famous because of how violent it was. Mo Fan wouldn't believe that it wasn't enough to blast through the rock barrier. As the fiery fist struck the ground, the whole place began to tremble. The surface of the ground burst open, as a shocking fire pillar jetted out with scorching lava. Following it, the second and third fire pillars appeared simultaneously. 9 astonishing pillars appeared consecutively, producing a formation of 9 halls. The dueling ground was blazing red, as the fire pillars combined into a scorching lava pool. Mo Fan, who was engulfed in flames at the center of the 9 halls, uttered a roar. The power of the fiery fist, 9 halls reached its limit, as the fire pillars, the flames, and the lava combined into the strongest energy, breaking through Li Yuji's soul seed's defense. The cerulean rocks were burned red, and were shattered into pieces by the impact produced by the fire pillars. Li Yuji had the earth element, thus she did not specifically prepare an outstanding defensive equipment. As her second-tier rock barrier broke into pieces, she no longer had any defensive measures. "Quick, save her," Wei Rong urged Bai Mei to interfere when the situation went out of control. Bai Mei was also worried that Li Yuji would be turned into ashes by the terrifying flames from the 9 halls. When he was about to make his move, he suddenly realized that Mo Fan had withdrawn the flames forcibly. The scorching flames dispersed fairly quickly. The jetting fire pillars disappeared into the ground, leaving a scorched land behind. In the midst of the remaining flames, Li Yuji backed off in a panic. She blushed when she realized that the destructive attack had vanished. I lost," Li Yuji lowered her head. Despite feeling unwilling, she could no longer stay on the stage. Her opponent had controlled the flames perfectly. If it were someone else who was proud, he would not have withdrawn the power of the 9 halls in time. Li Yuji wore a complicated gaze when Mo Fan withdrew his magic. Not everyone could easily fully withdraw a devastating attack within a second, unless he had no intention to harm her right from the beginning. Chapter 422 Which element was he from? Bai Mei and Wei Rong let out a relieved sigh when they saw Li Yuji was perfectly unharmed. "This student knows his limits," Bai Mei said to Wei Rong thoughtfully. Wei Rong coldly harumphed as a response. He cast a glance at the heavily panting Mo Fan. It was obvious that his energy was close to depletion after the prolonged battles. If another expert ranked close to the 100th appeared, he would most likely be defeated. Having 79 people defeated by a single person in a row had already cost the fire school their face. Most importantly, he was only a transfer student. Not only was the dueling ground crowded with students from the other elements, even the elemental directors were here. Wei Rong had not wanted it to catch so much attention in the first place. He hesitated for a while, before saying to the seemingly tired Mo Fan on the stage, "Let's call it an end." "Shall we, Mo Fan?" "What end?" "Call the next one," said Mo Fan. "I take back all my words." "You have proven your point with your strength," Wei Rong compromised. "Do you really think I'm doing this because of what you said?" Mo Fan shifted his focus toward Zheng Jiawei, who was left speechless in astonishment. A while ago, Mo Fan met a young man at Hangzhou who had only achieved the basic level. He was given odd jobs in the military, as he had nowhere to go, but even when facing the army that consisted millions of white magic falcons and a super magician, he never backed off, not even a single step. Mo Fan was extremely touched by the kid who had now lost his soul, and then he stumbled into Zheng Jiawei, who was in a similar spot as the kid. On top of trying to stop the endless challenges, he also wanted to help him, yet the timidity that Zheng Jiawei had shown him was ridiculous. Everyone had the right to be scared of death, yet in the school, when there was no threat to his life, he still could not gather his courage or find the determination to take on the challenge before him. It was a selfish reaction, and had nothing to do with being weak or timid. Normally, Mo Fan wouldn't bother wasting his time on someone who had given up on himself, but when he recalled the sacrifice that Wang Xiaojun had made, he suddenly felt furious toward Zheng Jiawei. Mo Fan was not trying to bring the fire school to shame. He was actually trying to put Zheng Jiawei to shame. "You've wasted too much energy from your fire and lightning elements. How are you going to face the rest of the challengers, unless you're keen to apologize to the whole school?" said Wei Rong. "Cut the bullshit, hurry up and call the next one," said Mo Fan. If any phrase could describe Mo Fan's situation, it was definitely, "You have to fulfill the boast you've made, even if it means fighting on your knees. I've given you the chance. Next, ranked 111th, Lu Qian. Wei Rong yelled out the name of the next challenger. The girls at the dueling ground screamed when they heard the name. Lu Qian might not be the strongest in the school, but he was definitely the white prince in the girls' hearts. He was very handsome, thus all the girls who challenged him did not do so to take his ranking, but to have a chance to stand in front of him. Even though everyone in the school was a noble intermediate magician, and such naive actions shouldn't take place here, the fact was many girls had done it before. Huang Xingli turned toward Lu Qian with an excited look, before blurting out happily, "So you challenged him, too? That's great. It's time to put an end to this, and your reputation is definitely going to improve, too. To be honest, I'm more willing to be the first to challenge him, instead of taking advantage of his precarious situation now. However, someone has to do it in the end, and it just happened to be my turn," replied Lu Qian with his usual smile. Huang Xingli nodded. There was a saying that those who were handsome would have better luck, too. It turned out that the saying was true. The Demon King who had defeated 79 students in a row was going to be defeated by a handsome prince. This was definitely the best ending. As a matter of fact, she never expected the transfer student to be this strong when she first saw him. Lu Qian slowly rose to his feet. Under the fiery gaze of the girls and the jealous gazes of the boys, he slowly walked down to the stage. He wore a gentle smile and glanced at Mo Fan with gleaming eyes. "To be honest, I'm fairly impressed by your capabilities. I'm pretty sure that you can easily fight your way into the top 50, yet unfortunately, you're about to take my ranking of 111th. Who do you think is more handsome between us?" Mo Fan suddenly asked a strange question. Lu Qian was stunned. He could only think, what the heck? He hesitated for a while, before saying in a humble tone, "We've got our own merits." "Hypocrite," said Mo Fan calmly. Lu Qian responded with a chuckle, "If I answered me, you would say that I'm arrogant." Mo Fan shook his head and said, "I called you a hypocrite because of your first sentence. As for the answer to who's more handsome, what do you mean by, we have our own merits? Please, my handsomeness totally outmatches yours." The smile on Lu Qian's face stiffened. He immediately thought, does this guy have some kind of mental disorder? On second thought, Lu Qian slowly accepted it. After all, a man with a high ego was expected to be jealous when the girls were screaming his opponent's name. "I won't waste my time further on those boring questions of yours. Your winning spree ends here." Lu Qian's reply was cold. He no longer showed any mercy to the disdainful Mo Fan. Mo Fan stood there. He did not panic because his energy had depleted. He waited patiently for Wei Rong to declare the start of the battle. Wei Rong was still hesitant. He did not announce the battle to begin straight away, as if he were showing his kindness by giving Mo Fan some extra time to replenish his energy. It was extremely tough to last through so many battles like him. "Qian Kun, this transfer student from your lightning school is quite remarkable. Has he come here purposely to kick our asses? I don't think you're willing to let such a great talent go," said Bai Mei, when he saw the elemental director of the lightning school. "What do you mean, my student?" asked Qian Kun with a confused look. Wei Rong turned his head too and asked, "He's a transfer student, and his secondary element is lightning. How is he not your student?" "I don't know him," said the elemental director of the lightning school. "There are so many students, perhaps you didn't remember him," said Bai Mei with a smile. "Impossible. Our lightning school has far fewer students. I know every single one of them. This kid is not from my lightning school," said Qian Kun sternly. Wei Rong and Bai Mei were astounded. They exchanged glances with one another. If this guy didn't transfer from the lightning school, which element did he come from? I think that student. The elemental director of the summoning element seemed to have something to say. Chapter 423 One-Sided Battle. The teachers glanced at the elemental director of the summoning school with puzzled looks. They did not understand why the summoning school was even related to this. "Well, from what I can recall, we did have someone called Mo Fan among the new students. I just received his details today," said Yi Yuquan. Bai Mei, Wei Rong, and Qian Kun burst out laughing. They all assumed that Yi Yuquan was joking with them. "So you're telling me that this kid is an advanced magician with 3 elements?" said Wei Rong. Bai Mei nodded too. The advanced magicians had all graduated from the school. There was no way Mo Fan would have reached such a high level. "Take a look yourself. I still have the information on my phone. Yi Yuquan unlocked his phone and gave it to the teachers. The documents clearly stated that the student Mo Fan had transferred from the summoning element to the fire element, and it was approved quite recently. Following this, the teachers exchanged glances with one another, before staring at the stage where Mo Fan was about to begin his next battle. Someone arrogant like you will have a hard time surviving in the main campus. Lu Qian totally gave up on being friendly toward Mo Fan. Only those with average strength like you need to fawn upon the others. For me, if someone is not convinced of my strength, we'll settle it with a fight. Lunar white stars gradually appeared around Mo Fan as he spoke. The stars were fairly unique. The glow they emitted was different from the other elements. The rays only flickered within a certain distance, as if they were protecting the area that belonged to them, aloof yet mysterious. The stars connected with one another. There were 7 of them, rapidly combining into a slightly curved arc. The lines seemed to be tearing the space apart slowly, revealing the passage to another world. It eventually turned into a gap. The crowd glanced at Mo Fan's odd spell with confused looks. The summoning element was extremely unfamiliar to many of them. As the crowd was wondering how Mo Fan was going to continue with the battle, an intimidating howl was heard coming from the gap. A strong gust of wind swept the dueling ground, and a beastly aura lingered in the surroundings. Things like auras were not stoppable by the defensive barriers. The students immediately showed fear on their faces. Those who were rather knowledgeable could tell what it was straight away. It was the presence of a warrior-level creature. Summoning element, blurted out Wei Rong in astonishment. A majestic wolf-like creature leapt out from the gap. Its body was covered in runes. Its size was not enormous, but its physique seemed fairly slender, yet did not lack the presence of strength. Its long hair drifted in the wind as its sharp claws penetrated the ground. The beast raised its handsome, fierce head. The stare it was giving to Lu Qian seemed to be hinting that he was not a worthy opponent. Damn it. This kid has 3 elements. Wei Rong cursed in shock. Could this Mo Fan be the guy ranked 5th on the innate talent leaderboard, the one with double innate elements? Yelled Qian Kun. I believe so, but I thought he died during his exchange. The teachers were stunned. They thought Mo Fan's winning spree was about to come to an end, as the energy of his fire and lightning element had depleted. However, when they saw the magnificent Swift Star Wolf, they had no choice but to re-evaluate the possible outcome of the battle. Among the crowd, many who were initially seated rose to their feet. Their eyes, which had almost popped out, clearly displayed their thoughts. What the heck is going on? It suddenly felt like they had failed basic algebra. 3 elements? Is this guy an advanced magician? Screamed Huang Xingli. I finally recalled why his name sounds so familiar. Ding Yuming's eyes were fixed on Mo Fan. Who exactly is he? Said Huang Xingli. The person ranked 5th on the innate talent leaderboard, double innate elements. He used to be very popular in the Azure Pearl campus. He single-handedly challenged all the students with only his summoning element, and was given the title, the Demon King, said Ding Yuming with gleaming eyes. As a matter of fact, Ding Yuming never cared about the things that took place at the Azure Pearl campus. However, her sister was involved in the incident at the stadium. As she recalled that series of events, she remembered that the person who saved her was called Mo Fan. Therefore, Ding Yuming had spent some time looking up information about Mo Fan. Unfortunately, a short time after he had exposed his double innate elements, he had died during training, yet he had reappeared alive and well, and still as ruthless as usual. On the stage, Lu Qian's calm, confident look had disappeared. Fuck me. He should be a lamp with its oil depleted. Where did his 3rd element come from? It would still be fine if he had only summoned an ordinary creature. Lu Qian was not easily intimidated by a summoned beast. To his surprise, it was a Swift Star Wolf, which had a fairly outstanding lineage among the wolf species. This summoned beast, which was well known for his speed, was like an assassin to magicians without defensive abilities. Roar! The Swift Star Wolf did not show any mercy to Lu Qian, quickly lunging at a terrifying pace. The sharp claws danced wildly as they approached Lu Qian, forming a net of blades, trying to shatter everything in front of them into pieces. Lu Qian was taken by surprise. He quickly summoned his shield equipment. A round shield appeared in front of Lu Qian. The claws collided with the shield, generating piercing screeches. Lu Qian was not satisfied with the situation. The shield equipment was more or less his final trump card, yet he was already forced to use it at the beginning. If he were careless in the battle, he would be severely injured by the beast. Lu Qian had underestimated the Swift Star Wolf's strength. It was no battle to begin with. The Swift Star Wolf utilized his outstanding speed to attack Lu Qian from different angles. The magic shield was unable to match the wolf's speed. Lu Qian tried to attack, but his magic could not even touch the Swift Star Wolf's hair, let alone inflicting any damage on him. At that moment, Lu Qian found himself in a miserable situation. With his strength, he could easily defeat a few ordinary intermediate magicians, yet a Swift Star Wolf that was troublesome for intermediate magicians was too much for him to handle. The fight had turned into a one-sided victory. Chapter 424 Big Demon King. The students lost their minds. The only words that could describe the strength of the Swift Star Wolf were fierce and violent. The 111th ranked Lu Qian was an expert with 2 soul seeds. His mastery of the spells was greater than Li Yuji, yet not a single spell managed to hit the Swift Star Wolf before the duration of his shield equipment ran out. The Swift Star Wolf seemed to be fooling around with his opponent. He purposely waited until the fiery fist was executed before dodging it. The Swift Star Wolf opened his mouth and spat out a wild gust of wind. The strong wind blew the dust, which howled swiftly across the dueling ground. The wind was a few times stronger than the intermediate wind spell, Wind Disc. Lu Qian, who had lost his defense, could only face it with his bare hands. His fairly average armor only slightly reduced the force of the attack. The Swift Star Wolf did not give Lu Qian any chance to catch his breath. As the dust was still drifting in the wind, he sprang forward at his greatest pace. His figure was only a flicker in the midst of the sandstorm. A great shadow loomed over the Swift Star Wolf. The students watching the duel inhaled deeply when they felt the violent beastly aura from the beast. Once the shadow devoured the Swift Star Wolf, he rammed into the armored Lu Qian. Lu Qian had no time to draw the stars of his next intermediate spell. He was instantly knocked flying when the armed Swift Star Wolf rammed into him like a truck. Lu Qian slammed heavily into the defensive barrier, spitting out mouthfuls of blood from the impact. He dropped to the ground. His previously well-groomed hair was now disheveled, while his face was pale white. He was still conscious, yet it felt like his inner organs had been dislocated from the impact. If it weren't for his equipment, he might have had trouble even surviving the collision. The girls who had their eyes fixed on Lu Qian could feel their hearts breaking. It was definitely something they were unwilling to see. The truth was, having a handsome appearance was not directly proportional to the strength one had. Even though Mo Fan's fire and lightning elements had depleted, Lu Qian still was unable to defeat one of his elements, and he was completely messed up. Lu Qian did not have the courage to continue the duel. He furiously left the stage. Huang Xingli quickly ran forward, trying to lend a hand to the severely injured Lu Qian. Lu Qian was feeling extremely unpleasant. He impatiently ignored Huang Xingli's kindness and disappeared from the crowd. He even rejected Teacher Bai Mei's offer to treat his wounds. His ego is hurt, so he is showing his temper, too. Bai Mei glanced at the angry Lu Qian and shook his head. Huang Xingli stood there with a blank face. She was thunderstruck when she saw the hint of disgust in Lu Qian's eyes. Huang Xingli returned to her seat in disappointment. The person she admired the most had only cast a disgusted glance at her, and it felt like her entire world had become dimmer. Ding Yuming sat beside her, not knowing how to comfort her. A girl like Huang Xingli was used to judging a book by its cover. As a matter of fact, everyone had their own personalities. A fairly good cover did not necessarily mean good character. Although this world did emphasize looks a lot, it was essential to keep the admiration just on the looks. It was unwise to have high expectations on other aspects, too. Among the spectators, Zheng Jiawei was totally dumbfounded. Even the famous Lu Qian was defeated. Adding him to the count, the maniac on the stage had already defeated 80 people in a row. Even those ranked in the top 50 would have trouble doing the same. Meanwhile, Mo Fan simply sat on the ground and began meditating. More than half of the challengers were left. If he could not recover some energy in time, it would be impossible for him to handle the upcoming duels. Although there was no way Mo Fan would apologize to each student of the fire school after he lost, he felt like if he failed to stay true to his words when he had just come back to school, it would ruin his image. He had to regain his title of the Demon King. Next, Yu Zhenqiao. Sir, can I not go? The The student called Yu Zhenchao began to regret his decision. If it were a battle between magicians, Yu Zhenchao would not mind showing his face on the stage. However, he totally lost his courage when he saw Mo Fan's summoned beast. Even though the summoned beast was under Mo Fan's control, it was still a beast, with no compassion or mercy. If the beast somehow tore his stomach open, he would suffer great pain, even if it did not cost him his life. Move your ass up there. Otherwise, I'll expel you from the fire school, you useless prick. Wei Rong cursed him furiously. Wei Rong could not help but admit that there was indeed lots of trash in his fire school. 80 people had gone up, yet they still could not take Mo Fan down. Even if he had double innate elements, the class should not have found itself in such a terrible situation. The challengers were not ordered based on their ranks. Currently, those ranked higher than 200 still managed to hold on a little longer. After all, people with double soul seeds were capable of fighting a warrior-level creature. That being said, capable of fighting and defeating were two completely different things. And unfortunately for the challengers, the most outstanding trait of the wolf species was their endurance. The beast did not seem worn out after the continuous battles. It was even recovering its energy during the fights. As a result, the number of defeated challengers stacked up rapidly. The challenges had now lasted from the morning until night. Some people among the crowd who had gone for meals were surprised when they discovered the place was still fully crowded when they came back. Double innate elements versus the fire school, the count is now 139 people. The summoned beast Swift Star Wolf is almost unbeatable. Those ranked lower than 100, please make way. The transfer student is on an impossible mission. The fire school is losing its face. All kinds of topics were spreading between everyone's mobile phones. Initially, the challenges were only made known between the different element schools, but now even those outside of the school knew about this. Soon, other institutes would know about it, too. Most of the new students were familiar with the Demon King Mo Fan. They quickly dug out all the news about him in the past. The crowd immediately came to a realization. It turned out that the maniac had not just appeared out of nowhere, but he had somehow returned from death in one piece, and was now trampling the Pearl Institute's main campus in his wrath.